Picture this. It's 2015, and the world's most exclusive supercar manufacturers are celebrating another year of dominance. Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche, they've spent decades and hundreds of millions convincing everyone that beating a supercar requires, well, a supercar. Then Dodge, yes, Dodge, rolls up to Virginia International Raceway with a car that costs $117,000 and proceeds to absolutely humiliate machines worth 3 times that amount. This isn't a David versus Goliath story. This is David showing up with a bazooka. The 2015-2017 Dodge Viper ACR wasn't just fast. It was a middle finger wrapped in carbon fiber and aimed directly at Europe's finest. While McLaren, Ferrari, and Porsche were busy adding turbos, hybrid systems, and computer-controlled everything, Dodge's engineers went the opposite direction. 8.4 liters, 10 cylinders, 0 turbochargers, 0 superchargers, 0 hybrid assistance, just 645 horsepower of naturally aspirated fury, and a 6-speed manual transmission that required you to actually know how to drive. But here's where the story gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean completely insane. The ACR stood for American Club Racer, and Dodge's engineers took that name seriously. This wasn't a street car that could occasionally visit a track. This was a track weapon that could, technically, be driven on streets, assuming you enjoyed destroying your spine on every pothole and explaining to concerned citizens why your car sounded like a NASCAR race was happening in their neighborhood. The numbers were staggering. 1,000 pounds of downforce at 150 miles per hour. That's not a typo. 1,000 pounds. To put that in perspective, most supercars of this era were producing 300 to 500 pounds of downforce. The Viper ACR was generating enough aerodynamic grip to theoretically drive upside down in a tunnel at high speed. Dodge's engineers didn't just push the boundaries, they drew a new map. Let's talk about that engine for a moment, because it deserves its own documentary. The 8.4-liter V10 was a throwback to an era when fuel efficiency was something engineers laughed about over beer. This motor displaced more than some diesel truck engines, produced 645 horsepower at 6,200 RPM, and delivered 600 pound-feet of torque at 5,000 RPM. No turbos waiting to spool. No hybrid system computing optimal power delivery. Just immediate, unfiltered, angry American V10 thunder. The weight, or rather, the lack of it, was equally impressive. The ACR tipped the scales at 3,374 pounds. For context, a Porsche 918 Spyder weighed 3,600 pounds. A McLaren P1 weighed 3,400. The Viper ACR matched million-dollar hypercars in the power-to-weight department while costing less than a fully loaded Ford F-150 Raptor. Dodge's strategy was elegantly simple. Add downforce, remove weight, add more downforce, remove more weight, repeat until European competitors start crying. But the real genius, and this is where Dodge separated themselves from everyone else, was the extreme Aero package. For $13,000, buyers could add an adjustable rear wing that looked like it was stolen from a Le Mans prototype, front dive planes that could slice through air molecules, and a rear diffuser so aggressive it needed its own zip code. The result? That magical 1,000 pounds of downforce that turned the Viper from very fast car into physics experiment on wheels. Let that sink in for a moment. $13,000 for Aero parts that matched what million-dollar hypercars were using. Dodge wasn't just competing with the big boys, they were embarrassing them on price to performance. The suspension told the same story of uncompromising purpose. Manually adjustable dampers, because Dodge assumed if you could afford a Viper ACR, you probably knew what rebound damping meant. No electronic adjustment, no adaptive systems, no computer deciding what setting you needed based on road conditions. You turned a wrench, you adjusted your dampers, you went faster. It was track day simplicity meeting aerospace engineering, and somehow it worked brilliantly. The brakes were equally hardcore. Brembo carbon ceramic rotors, 15 inches in front, 14 in rear. 6-piston calipers up front, 4-piston in rear. These brakes could stop the Viper from 60 miles per hour in under 100 feet, while generating enough heat to cook a Thanksgiving turkey. Dodge included brake cooling ducts as standard equipment because they knew exactly what owners would do with this car. And it involved brake temperatures that would make lesser systems wave a white flag. Inside, the ACR was hilariously Spartan. No fancy infotainment system, no heated seats, no navigation. The air conditioning was technically optional because Dodge figured if you were buying an ACR, creature comforts ranked somewhere below functional kidneys on your priority list. You got racing seats, a roll cage, and a steering wheel. That's it. That's the luxury package. The price? This is where Dodge's engineers must have been laughing so hard they needed medical attention. The base 2016 Viper ACR had an MSRP of $117,895. That's not a typo. $117,000. For context, a Porsche 918 Spyder cost $850,000. A McLaren P1 cost $1.35 million. A LaFerrari cost $1.4 million. The Viper ACR cost about as much as a well-optioned Porsche 911 GT3 and was about to make all of them look foolish. But here's where the story transforms from impressive American car to automotive legend that rewrote the rulebook, the lap records. Between 2015 and 2017, the Viper ACR went on what can only be described as a track record killing spree across North America. It wasn't just beating expensive supercars. It was obliterating them so thoroughly that European manufacturers probably held emergency board meetings. Let's go through the massacre, because that's exactly what it was. At Laguna Seca, the Viper ACR posted a 1-minute 28.65-second lap, faster than every officially timed production car of its era at that circuit. The kicker? The ACR did it on DOT-approved extreme performance tires, Kumho V720 ACRs, developed specifically for this car, but still federally legal rubber you could theoretically drive to the grocery store. At Virginia International Raceway, and this is where things get truly ridiculous, the Viper ACR ran a 2-minute 40.33-second lap. That made it faster than the published production car lap times of the McLaren P1, the Porsche 918 Spyder, and the LaFerrari at the same circuit. Yes, you read that correctly. A $117,000 Dodge posted better lap times than the holy trinity of million-dollar hybrid hypercars. Let that marinate for a moment. A Dodge, beating McLaren, Porsche, and Ferrari's hypercar royalty on the same racetrack. With production, DOT legal tires. Still processing? Good, because it gets even better. The records kept falling. Road Atlanta, 1 minute 32.7 seconds. Circuit of the Americas, 2 minutes, 10.8 seconds. Button Willow Raceway, 1 minute 57.7 seconds. Willow Springs, 1 minute 20.6 seconds. Every track the Viper ACR visited, it rewrote the production car record books. By the end of its production run, the ACR held over a dozen production car lap records at tracks across North America. Even at the Nürburgring, the ultimate test of any performance car in Europe's home turf, the Viper ACR posted a 7-minute 03.45-second lap, one of the fastest production car times ever recorded at the circuit during that era. That made it faster than the Lamborghini Murcielago LP640, faster than the Pagani Zonda F, faster than the original Porsche Carrera GT. A front-engine, naturally aspirated V10 American car was setting lap times that mid-engine exotic manufacturers charged premium prices to achieve. Dodge wasn't playing the game. They rewrote the entire rulebook. The automotive press went absolutely berserk. Motor Trend called it the most capable road-legal track car America has ever produced. Road and Track wrote that the ACR makes million-dollar hypercars look like they're trying too hard. Car and Driver stated the Viper ACR proves that sometimes the best technology is no technology at all. These weren't small-time bloggers. These were respected publications watching in real time as Dodge destroyed every assumption about what it took to build the ultimate track weapon. But here's what made the ACR truly special. It wasn't just fast, it was teachable fast. The 918 P1 and LaFerrari would lap quickly almost regardless of driver skill, because their computers handled tire slip, brake distribution, and power delivery. The Viper ACR gave you none of that. If you braked too late, you crashed. If you got on the throttle too early, you spun. If you missed your shift, you lost time. The ACR required skill, commitment, and a complete absence of self-preservation instincts. It was the last of a dying breed, a supercar that demanded respect. The development story was equally remarkable. Dodge's engineers had a clear mandate from SRT management: build the fastest production track car in America, and don't worry about comfort, luxury, or whether normal human beings could drive it. So they borrowed aerodynamic principles from prototype racing, suspension geometry from circuit competition, and brake cooling from professional motorsport. The result was a street-legal race car that happened to have a VIN number and license plate mount. The tires deserve special mention because they were critical to the ACR's success. Dodge partnered with Kumho to develop the COTA V720 ACR. Dodge approved extreme performance rubber so sticky, so grip-focused, and so specialized that it was essentially a federally legal racing tire. These tires were designed to handle the massive downforce, the 600-plus horsepower, and the aggressive suspension geometry. They succeeded so well that competitors accused Dodge of essentially cheating with semi-racing tires. Dodge's response? They're .legal. Prove us wrong. On track. Imagine the engineers at Porsche, Ferrari, and McLaren watching this unfold. Their million-dollar hypercars getting destroyed by an American car that cost less than a moderately successful plumber's annual salary. The audacity, the embarrassment, the genius. Owners reported that the ACR was hilariously impractical for daily driving. The ride was harsh enough to cause dental work. The exhaust was loud enough to set off car alarms 3 blocks away. The massive wing blocked rearward visibility so completely that backing up required faith, prayer, and an advanced degree in spatial reasoning. The carbon ceramic brakes squealed at low speeds like angry pterodactyls, and the ground clearance was so minimal that speed bumps required military-grade planning. But take that same car to a track, any track, and it transformed from uncomfortable streetcar into absolute weapon. The downforce that made highway driving feel like you were towing an aircraft carrier became cornering grip that defied physics. The harsh suspension that punished every road imperfection became precision that allowed you to hit apexes with millimeter accuracy. The loud exhaust became a symphony that announced your arrival 3 corners before you actually appeared. The ACR was purpose-built with one mission: dominate racetracks. Everything else was secondary. And then, because this is a car story and car stories always have tragedy, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles decided to kill the entire Viper program. In 2017, after just 3 model years of the 5th-generation Viper and barely 2 years of ACR production, FCA announced production would cease. The reason? Money. Always money. The Viper was expensive to build, didn't sell in huge numbers, and didn't fit neatly into FCA's portfolio strategy. Accountants defeated engineers. Spreadsheets won over emotion. The final Viper ACR rolled off the production line at the Connor Avenue assembly plant in Detroit in August 2017. Total ACR production for the 2015-2017 model years? Approximately 450 to 480 units depending on specification. Dodge had built a track-dominating, record-setting, hypercar humiliating weapon, and produced it for barely long enough for the world to realize what it was witnessing. The automotive equivalent of a brilliant musician dying young. The enthusiast community was devastated. Here was a car that proved American engineering could compete, no, dominate, at the highest levels of performance. A car that showed you didn't need turbos, hybrids, or all-wheel drive to set lap records. A car that demonstrated raw mechanical grip, massive downforce, and naturally aspirated power could still beat the latest technology. And it was gone. Just like that. Killed not by competition or obsolescence, but by corporate bean counters who couldn't see past quarterly earnings reports. Values have responded predictably. Original MSRP was $117,000. Today, clean 2015-2017 Viper ACRs trade hands for $150,000 to $200,000 depending on mileage and specification. Extreme Aero package cars command premiums. Low-mileage examples with documented track records, ironically, sell for even more. The market recognized what FCA management didn't. The ACR was special, unrepeatable. A moment in automotive history when everything aligned perfectly. Racing versions continued the legacy briefly. Customer racing Viper GT3R models competed in IMSA and international GT3 competition through 2020. These cars proved the platform's capability at the professional level, scoring podiums and demonstrating that Dodge's engineering was world-class. But without factory support or a production car to homologate updates, even the racing program eventually faded. The Viper roared one final time, then went silent. The ACR's influence extends beyond its brief production run. It proved that extreme aerodynamics could work on street-legal cars without compromising drivability. Well, without compromising it too much. It demonstrated that naturally aspirated engines still had a place in a turbo-dominated world. It showed that manual transmissions could still be faster than automatics in the right hands. And it confirmed what enthusiasts had argued for decades: driver engagement matters more than raw technology. Today, the 2015-2017 Viper ACR occupies a unique space in automotive history. It's the car that came at the end of an era, the final naturally aspirated manual transmission, no computers allowed American supercar. Every high-performance car since has added turbos, hybrid systems, or computer controls. The ACR was the last hurrah, the final statement. The mic drop moment where Dodge proved American engineering could beat anyone, anywhere, at anything, then walked away before anyone could respond. The dozen-plus production car lap records still stand as testament to what Dodge's engineers accomplished. They built a $117,000 car that embarrassed million-dollar hypercars. They created a track weapon that required skill instead of computers. They proved that sometimes the answer to "how do we compete with European exotics" is massive downforce and absolutely zero compromise. The ACR didn't just compete, it dominated, then disappeared. Looking back, the Viper ACR represents everything enthusiasts claim they want but rarely actually buy. Raw, mechanical, demanding, uncompromising. No comfort, no convenience, just pure, unfiltered performance delivered in the most direct way possible. It was a love letter to drivers written by engineers who understood that the best cars aren't always the most advanced. They're the ones that make you feel most alive. And for that brief moment between 2015 and 2017, Dodge built exactly that. So here's to the Dodge Viper ACR, the $117,000 weapon that humiliated supercars worth millions, set over a dozen lap records, required genuine driving skill, and died far too young. It proved American engineering could compete at the absolute highest level. It demonstrated that technology isn't always the answer, and it reminded everyone that sometimes the best supercar is the one built by people who simply refuse to lose. Dodge showed up, dominated, dropped the mic, and walked away before anyone could ask for a rematch. That's how legends are born. If you're wondering what other overlooked weapons destroyed the supercar establishment, our channel has the complete stories. Subscribe for more insanity, because we're just getting started documenting the cars that rewrote the rules. This is Supercar Chronicles, where performance speaks louder than price tags.